Welcome to all of you to our today's lecture. I have the honor to introduce to our SCI-Arc audience a lecture of Silvio Pietro Angori, the CEO and Managing Director of Pininfarina, a symbol of Italian style all around the world. Pininfarina is a design house famous for, and I'm sure all of you know, and that's the reason you're here, for automotive design and transportation design. But maybe some of you don't know that the company is much more than that. It's much more than cars. Not only they talk about sustainable mobility, but also they have a lot of projects in terms of industrial design, engineering, and also architecture and interior, something that they have in common with our School of Architecture, SCI-Arc. All of you are students of architecture. There's actually quite a bit of their practice that is an overlap with what you as well do in the school. I wanted to start the introduction describing the firm as with a sentence that I think summarizes what they do, from the spoon to the city. This sentence is a quite famous one that relates to the idea that designers work in a cross-disciplinary way. This sentence is attributed to many people and contrasting design tendencies. William Morris used it in reference to the arts and crafts. Walter Gropius used it as a personal motto to describe his pedagogical program as GSD. And according to other sources, Mies van der Rohe invented the term. And in Italy, for sure, this postmodern Ernest Rogers used it to describe the work of Italian postmodernism, POMO. And also Massimo Vignelli made of his sentence his life work description. I'm talking about this sentence because I think that it really manages to encompass the idea that designers are called to design at different scales. And there are many good architects and good designers that work that way, from the spoon to the city. One example is the IMSS in Los Angeles, but there are many others. The work really traversed the terrain from the banal to the grand, from something as simple as a spoon to the city, something that actually has a lot of political implication, like mobility at a much larger scale, how we use the territory. It talks about jumping scales, something that architects and designers do quite a bit. The sentence is deployed in support of also antithetical causes. Just the fact that so many people have been attributed this sentence, talking about completely different styles, makes it an interesting one for me to introduce Silvio. And also talks about something important, like the idea that design is comprehensive. And also that the idea that the designer could have total control on what they design in their life. Also, the slogan implies that the world might be ordered and designed with similar principle. And in the case of Pininfarina, those principles might be elegance, minimalism, and innovation. We'll hear from Silvio what those are. The logic of the small is somehow relevant to the logic of the large, and it promotes an integrated, all-encompassing view of reality. The reality of Pininfarina. Silvio, CEO and Managing Director of Pininfarina, will give a presentation on the iconic Italian brand that will combine the idea of art, design, culture, and entrepreneurship. And he has a master's degree in Fisica Teorica from La Sapienza University in Rome, and also a master's degree from the business, both School of Business in Chicago. In 2007, he joined Pininfarina as a COO, and in 2009, he was elected as a CEO, position that he holds today. And during his tenure, he successfully led the company and relaunched Pininfarina, that now is a totally global leader of Italian design. So please welcome Silvio to lecture on stage about the value of elegance, minimalism, and innovation of Italian design in the world.
It started with a dream. A dream born in Italy more than 8 decades ago by a visionary man with the desire to create beauty around the human experience. Take everyday objects and transform them into works of art. This is the story of a singular obsession, an enduring passion, a family tradition. This is the story of Pininfarina. At Pininfarina, we believe that tradition inspires innovation, that form and function are one, that timeless beauty provokes strong emotion, and that a visionary style can literally shape the future. From a passionate new take on luxury and motion, to the ultimate symbol of human achievement, to soaring designs for modern living, to objects of timeless beauty. Pininfarina is the magic driving emotion. Pininfarina, elegance, purity, innovation.
Well, good afternoon to all of you. In the next 20 minutes or so, or a bit less than 20 minutes, I would like to walk you through the world of design, but from a different perspective than the ones that you are used to approach when you study it. And it's the world of design from the standpoint of someone that runs a business, that runs a company that is just the one that you've just seen in the video, that is Pininfarina. It is a great privilege for me to be here today and lecture on this topic. And besides what Elena said, I would like to say this. I would like to convince you that design makes the world a better place. In reality, I think that I'm preaching the choir because you know that very well, being here as a student and being involved in design. And now, the short video that you've been seeing is exactly what I mean when we say that design shapes the world. Well, there has been lots of elaborations in these several years, 100 years, about what is the antagonism between art and function, technology, and what is design as such. Now, what is then beauty and art as compared to design? Well, design is function, really, and is linked to beauty, but in essence, the purity of what you do has to do with the functionality of what you're trying to design. And that, I think, is what makes a major difference. So, in other words, the question that sometimes we are being asked is, can be a product to be at the same time beautifully designed and carefully engineered, so that would please the eyes and comply with the technical requirements? And obviously, the response is yes, and that is what design does. And now, more than in the past, design is influencing our everyday life. And I will try to convince you that this is true, irrespective of the field in which you are exercising your competencies. But now, because of the work that I do, having the privilege of leading Pininfarina, this icon of the design, the worldwide design, I need to remind you that everything that we do has an economic impact. And I think that one of the most important milestones in the history of the intellectual property protection is the Patent Act, the Design Patent Act that was enacted in 1988 by the American Congress, that stated a truth, an unquestioned truth, and that is that it is the design as such that sells any article, any good. And that is the design that makes possible to make profits. Well, let me put that differently. That statement says that the beauty sells and the ugliness does not, right? Now, and in this context, in the context that we are talking about industrial products, be it a building, a ship, a car, all of them takes birth as lifeless objects. Design breathes the soul into machines. It's the soul that conveys emotions, feelings, experience, all becoming the distinctive trait of a product. It is universally accepted that the primary goal of a piece of art is to generate emotions. And I will come back to the concept of emotions later in my speech. Aesthetic codes can be expressed in a pure manner, and they are representative of a time period. They can be a statue of Phidia, as the essence of the Greek art. The Pietà of Michelangelo is again expresses another aesthetic canon that is in the essence of the Italian Rinascimento. These are pieces of art, right? Their function is purely aesthetic. But we can move on and then talk about objects that instead of being pure aesthetic objects have instead of function. They need like in a watch, they are used in real life, not just to please the eyes, but that they have a function. Now, this is where our Italian roots come into play. And then I think I could elaborate a lot about why we Italians have certain traits that we interpret in certain ways the design. Maybe we can address it later in the Q&A session. But our designers and our engineers, as you know that I'm not an engineer, I'm a physicist by education, and I have a degree in finance. So it is very much the contrary to what you would expect a designer would be. In fact, I'm not pretending to be a designer, but I'm just taking you through my personal experience when it comes down to how the Italian roots of design comes into play. Because every day when we stare out from the window, we see certain landscapes, okay? The same architecture, the same essence of the Italian beauty as in this painting that you might recall, the Piero della Francesca. But it's not just beauty that we breathe in Italy. We breathe engineering as well. And Italian was Leonardo da Vinci, the greatest engineers of all times. He conceived extraordinary machines as well as La Gioconda. Therefore, the perfect balance between form and function makes the design. Italian design combines the concreteness of traditional craftsmanship and the spirit of experimentation by integrating the beauty of design into mass production. Italian design has fostered the coexistence of art, industry along a mutual development process. That few traits give a hint of as to why Pininfarina is considered to be the quintessential of the Italian design. Now, designers are fully integrated with the society in which they live in. And a designer receives constant stimuli as part of this culture in which he lives. And this is, again, why it is important that the culture that would express the design of a specific region. And now, just an excursus on my personal interests that are those of the vast majority of our designers. I'm linked to this magazine that is a magazine that reviews books, such as the Time Literary Supplement of the New York Review of Books. So this means that whoever does any job must be doing it because it's integrated into the society in which he lives. He develops the culture, okay? So anything that he would conceive, be it a design, a product, as well as a function that he serves, well, he has to do that because it is integrated fully in the society in which he lives, right? Now, I wish to remind a statement from Mr. Sergio Pininfarina, that was the son of the founder of Pininfarina. And that I think it is true for each and every designer, that dream, so that the interest is to create an endless beauty, okay? And in doing so, over the years, after 80 years or after 88 years since the creation of this company, these three words must represent the DNA of that company, that design house. Elegance, purity, innovation. That is what Elena was referring before as minimalist. And that indeed is what has made the company that it is today. And the design is, in Pininfarina's minds, the confluence between the technology and innovation with purity and elegance. Creation that will last forever will always show elegance, purity, innovations. And these are our design codes that we do apply in anything that the company does. The many Ferraris that we have been designing over 70 plus years witness how the beauty can be translated into real products and how design is instrumental for this beauty to happen. The synthesis between aesthetics and functionality with a soul. And that soul feels emotional impressions. Design is not only linked to beauty. Design is the key factor to develop meaningful customer experience. And in these days, we listen that often to this buzzword, customer experience. Let me elaborate a bit on it. Today, consumer habits are, like in the past, very difficult to predict. And the ability, how then you transform the consumer habits into loyalty to certain brands is, again, through experience, right? Now, a consumer today has access to nearly all the information on the planet in their pocket. When the customer makes a decision, he has an incredible amount of knowledge. He's no longer held hostage or what is available to purchase, but rather he can choose as a choice, a tremendous choice. And those choices need to be aligned to his personal wishes, right? And that is why we talk about journey, the customer journey, according to which he then becomes loyal to a specific brand or product or service. What you see here is the interiors of a high-speed train, the Eurostar, that runs from London to Paris. We have designed the exteriors and the interiors 7 years ago, when very few were thinking and talking about the customer experience, better said, the customer journey. Well, that is easy to understand, well, because you get in a train, and therefore it's a journey. It is a physical journey. But in reality, what you're looking at is the virtual journey. It's the passion that these guys would go through when they take a train. That kind of experience is the one that everyone is feeling every single day when he does anything that he wants to do in life. And that is why I said at the beginning, that what we got to do is to design it. Design the experience that the end client will go through, okay? Now, design is enhancing the quality of our lives, no doubts about it. And another truth is that to design anything, you spend the same amount of money and time, whether you do it that is nice looking or is ugly. Isn't that true? That is why it is better off to plan ahead of time what you intend to do and what is you want to convey to these guys rather than simply serving the interest of being functional, of designing something that is functional, right? Now, in this prestigious school, I want to show you a video about what we do in architecture as well. Well, this building has been inaugurated just last April in São Paulo, and is the last example of an architectural building that we have designed, and that we have several others in the world today. I will not elaborate that much on what's behind this building, but I wish you to see and to have a look at it then later, and have some of my colleagues that are here today to answer some specific questions that you might have on the design itself. What I want to tell you is that the way in which this building has been conceived was to be fully integrated in the landscape, designed by the wind. And now, this is the narrative that you may want to trace back whenever you do something. You have to build up the story that would be behind the service or the product that you are conceiving, because it is what that would remain in the minds of people. Okay? You've not probably, you have noticed, and you will see in another video that I have, that we make an extensive use of our wind tunnel. Wind tunnel is, and in fact, our design sometimes is referred to being shaped by the wind. That building is exactly that, the exemplification of the wind in which this building is in. Now, this tower, this air traffic control tower that is going to be inaugurated in, next week on 25th of October in Istanbul. I think, again, even this architectural piece is fully integrated in the landscape. I mean, you don't see that much now because obviously there is so much construction going on. But the way in which has been conceived is to represent the essence of Turkey, of that country. A tulip is the flower that is represented by this tower. And that is not just an example of a building serving a function. That building is fully integrated with the landscape around it. In the ground basement, there is a mall. People will be walking through it, will be living that piece of architecture. And the upper part, where the tower ends, and where there is the reason as to why that has been built, is going to oversee the largest airport in the world. They will have 200 million people every year crossing that airport. So, when we say innovation, and we go to something that Elena was referring at the beginning, that is contamination. Contamination starts here. I mean, when you talk about, when we show you this, I show you this boat, okay? This boat is meant to provide a superior experience to those that would be having the joy of using it, okay? But for us designers, I think if we look at a different stand on it, you will see that how that design is integrated into the sea, where the curves that are taking shape from the waves into the outside of this boat, into the interiors. And I don't have time now to show you the interiors of this boat, but you will see a fil rouge that is connecting all dots. That is meant to provide customer experience as much as when you have people sitting in a stadium. This is a soccer stadium for the Juventus team in Italy that we have designed about 8 years ago. You see here about 40,000 people living in the same space. What is the experience that we intend to convey to these guys? It's not just the ability of watching a soccer team playing, right? But it's much more than this. It's their journey, their customer journey starts from the very moment that they will book tickets for the game. And how this ticket is booked is strictly connected with the way in which they sit and watch the game. And there is that much that goes on from the time in which they have booked the ticket to the time in which they are watching the game and then afterwards, when they leave the stadium. All this is part of the same design exercise. This is what you as designers have to think and have to imagine on behalf of your users of what you have designed, right? And then these guys are all connected, okay? Connected physically to a game, connected to an experience. And now this leads me to the connected world that everyone is talking about. In fact, in these days, connection is again a buzzword. Anything that can be connected will be connected, okay? There will be 26 billion of devices by 2020 connected. Smart cities, connected cars, home domotics, and all this. Now, this is why then, into a different level, you are required to be in the edge of the innovation, developing human-to-machines and machines-to-machines interfaces, okay? I know that for who does architectural design, that might be difficult to see, but I know that because you are designing domotics in your architecture designs and projects, you will understand exactly what I'm saying. And let me talk about this. This is a Costa machine, okay? Now, what's the success of a bar in Italy? A bar means a place where you go and drink a coffee and you drink an espresso, sort of Starbucks. It's not that proper Starbucks, okay? Don't get me wrong. Starbucks is a different thing, and a bar in Italy is a different thing, okay? Now, this machine tried to recreate the experience that you would have when you walk through a coffee shop in Italy, a bar, as we call them, or even Starbucks to a certain extent. This machine is capable of creating more than 100 different flavors. Now, these machines, as soon as you have gone there once or twice, it would have collected so much information about you. Don't get scared. Everything is secret, okay? It's not going to be shared. But then it would prepare the coffee as you wish. It will learn how you intend to have a coffee. It would spread some flavor around it, recreating the same environment that you would have when you would walk through a coffee shop, okay? That is human, this is HMI, human-machine interface. This is how artificial intelligence is playing a major role here. This is the future. And this is where designers have to be involved every single day, okay? Same thing when you design a kitchen. When you design, if you are an interior designer and you are imagining the way in which you want to offer specific experience to your customers. By the way, this is a Snyder kitchen that we have designed a few months back. And intelligence there tells how these different objects, the fridge that replenishes itself, the coffee machine that warms up because you know when, that it knows when you are waking up and what kind of coffee you wish to have, and so forth. It is in that designing a customer experience rather than a single object as it is. Now, and let me go back for a second to the field in which we draw legitimacy as designers. Because 88 years ago, when we started, when the company was created, it was created as a coach builder. That means creating cars and manufacturing cars. I was talking about connected cars. That is the example of a connected car is. and where the contamination between interior design, architectural design, urban design, technology in broad sense, artificial intelligence are coming all together. And think about the fact that today cars are not any longer products that you want to own, but you will share. You are going to share them. And they are part of a mobility service. They are not a product as such. And because then you are using the car as part of a mobility service, you are going to have and wanting something different when you walk in it. You're using them in a different way. Cars are going to be driverless. You will not have the pleasure of driving them because that might be at the end of the week. For your weekends, you will have your own car that would perpetuate the pleasure of driving a vehicle. But in this case, when you go from your home to your university, you go to your office and so forth, what you wish, you want to have an environment around you that is the closest possible to your wishes, to the way in which you want to live your life. And this is the extreme personalization of the interiors of cars, identical to the one that you would have in your home. And therefore, interior designers, those that would make a trim and colors, that we call them in the design studios, are then going to use the most advanced technologies. Fabric that will change their colors, consistency, how the tissues are, and so forth. That is the forefront of the design, the forefront of technology. And what it means is that when a design team is formed, in that team, you won't have only designers and engineers as it used to be in the past. And I think that I know that you know that very well. But you will have historians, you will have philosophers, you will have sociologists, psychologists. If you look at the team composition of our design teams, well, you will see and you will find all these disciplines represented, because that is what is needed to capture and promote, to capture the wills, the willingness, the wishes of users, and certainly create the brand. Because in the end, what we want to do as designers is to create brands. Brands means loyalty. Brands means that you have a pool of followers, to use another buzzword, that will continue to use your services. In fact, what is a brand? There are many different definitions, but a brand is what a company, institutions, does do at the best of their abilities, and they do that over time repeatedly. That is just a brand. In fact, then you capture and you create a brand once you're able to be always at the top of your abilities, and you do that not just once, twice, but you do that and without an end. Okay? And therefore, that is why we are now talking about user experience and all this that I will not elaborate on, but I wish to tell another thing that is this, and that is that designers, their primary goal is to anticipate the future. Now, forgive me if I'm using an example of Pininfarina, but in 2007, we had conceived a car called Synthesis that was presented indeed at the Geneva Motor Show in that March, in that year, 2007. And that car was envisaging and anticipating the future changes of the auto industry. Why? Because that car was meant to anticipate the changes in the technology in order to then define what would be the customer journey, the physical customer journey, integral part of the emotional journey. This car was conceived to be an electric car, fuel cell, so a hydrogen-powered car, engines on the wheels, so that then would have allowed the maximum space in the passenger compartment, and it was meant to be connected at all times. And 11 years ago, 5G was not even a word. We were still in 1G, I believe. That meant that imagining a car that would have been connected at all times with the infrastructure and connected to all the other cars with a level 3 of autonomy, as you know today, that means the ability, it was not a driverless, but it was trending to this one, was indeed talking about fiction science. But that is the role of designers. This is what they got to do. You have to envisage the future. You have to imagine what the future is. And if you can imagine it, you can make it. Now, what is the future as we see it? We see it, the emergence of these very large new towns, large cities, smart cities. There is a large development going on in the Middle East as of now. There are some other, as you know, towns that are being envisaged here by Google and Amazon or Apple themselves in the US. So there is that much that can be done. And what I would encourage you is really to think that those that will be living in those towns have to be loyal to the brand. That means that you have to provide them a reason, a unique reason to be there, to live there, and to live their lives in a way that is complying with their needs. And sometimes you have to create the needs for these guys that they don't even know what they will be. But that is the role of designers, indeed. Now, what I want to do now, I want to show you another video that is done for, has been created for Cisco, that is one of our clients. And what you're going to be seeing is, you might wonder at the end of the video why we have done it, because you don't see the product that we have designed for them. But what is important is the narrative, because in the end, you guys are going to be selling dreams.
Every generation fight with a different monster and face different problematics. The Pininfarina design is the elegance, the minimalism, the essentiality, the pureness. You're not designing just a product, an object. You are designing a relationship. It's all about emotions. There is a strong relation with the past, with the strong story of great artists and creative people. It's a tradition, part of the Italian story. But sometimes the strong story can stop you. the aim of Pininfarina. It's a tradition of the new. You cannot do the same thing that has been done in the past, but you can bring the same values and use the tradition to see the future. That, I think, is the secret. The world is changing faster and faster and faster. As soon as we are evolving as people, all the environment needs to evolve together with us. So you must have the big picture. That is the reason Pininfarina decided to open the eyes, not only focusing on cars. It's about everything. Other means of transportation, industrial design, systems, spaces. The cars are still there, are still the four wheels. Some elements are still the same. But the way you interact with the car, the way you own the car, is completely different. I like to don't have a clear vision of the future. But if I look to the past, only 6 months ago, probably we already was doing things in a different way than today. And tomorrow we will do it different again.
Now, what I wish to conclude my speech to you today is showing to you another video, because yes, I've been saying to you, I've been telling you that cars will be shared, will be part of mobility services, but in reality, cars will continue to solicit emotions, and we will do it forever, for another 88 years at least. And I'm going to show you a car that we have just presented a few months back that I imagine that is again in line with what we've been saying to you today about the 3 values that makes our brand: purity, innovations, and elegance. I hope that I've convinced you that design makes the world a better place. Thank you.